Donald Trump is flying to Beijing, the first U.S. president to visit China in 9 years. And let's be honest, we all know what the headlines are going to look like. Tariffs, trade deals, more tariffs, tariffs on tariffs, maybe a handshake photo and someone arguing about soybeans. I'm sick of it, but then I came across this story, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. A $2 billion deal that was already done. Money wired, employees moved, website updated, that China reached back in time and canceled. 2 founders who, right now, are not allowed to leave the country. An American tech giant, a Chinese startup that tried to escape, and quietly, sitting underneath the whole Trump-Xi summit, a fight that could decide who owns the next industrial revolution. That's not a trade dispute. That's a hostage situation dressed in regulatory language. And what happens in the next 48 hours might change the AI industry forever. December 2025. Meta quietly acquires a startup called Manus AI. Price tag, $2 to $3 billion. Done. Closed. Money wired. Investors paid out. 100+ Manus employees moved into Meta's Singapore office. Then, April 27th, 2026. 4 months later, China's National Development and Reform Commission formally bans the acquisition and orders both parties to unwind it. The deal is done. The money is gone. The employees work at Meta. And China says, unwind it. Meta's response was the corporate equivalent of, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Something about appropriate resolution to the inquiry. Nobody knows what an appropriate resolution looks like, because clawing the money back is somewhere between complicated and impossible. And that's before we get to the founders. Late March 2026, Manus CEO Xiao Hong and his co-founder Ji Yichao get summoned to Beijing for a meeting with regulators. They walk in. They don't walk out. Authorities barred them from leaving the country during the review process. 2 founders. Can't leave. Leverage in a geopolitical standoff over a deal that's already closed. This is where we are. Now I know what you're thinking. Why do I care about some Chinese startup I've never heard of? Let me show you exactly why. Imagine you open your laptop tonight and type one sentence. Build me an online store that sells handmade candles. Pick the name. Register the domain. Build the website. Set up payments. Launch ads on Instagram. You close the laptop. You go to bed. When you wake up, the business is live. Real domain. Real site. Real ads running. Real first sale already in. That's Manus. That's what it does. That's not a chatbot. That's an employee. Now imagine that capability, at scale, in the hands of every business on Earth. Marketing teams, lawyers, analysts, recruiters, anyone who works at a desk. This isn't a tool. This is the layer that turns AI from something you talk to into something that does the work. And whoever controls that layer controls the next industrial revolution. That's why China canceled the deal. Here's the part of the story mainstream coverage is getting wrong. Every headline keeps calling Manus a Chinese AI company. By April 2026, it wasn't. Not really. June 2025, they moved their headquarters out of China to Singapore. July 2025, they shut down their product inside mainland China. You literally couldn't use Manus from China anymore. Same month, they laid off all their Chinese staff, closed their Chinese offices entirely. These aren't the moves of a Chinese company going global. These are the moves of a company running away. Why Singapore? To legally take American venture capital and access NVIDIA chips that U.S. export controls block from going into mainland China. Benchmark, the firm that backed Twitter, Instagram, and Uber, led a $75 million round. Manus ran on Anthropic's Claude, American AI, American Cloud, American Capital, being bought by an American company. Manus had threaded the needle, legally, structurally, operationally. They had genuinely crossed over, and Beijing said, no, you don't get to leave. Chinese officials called it technology smuggling. The logic, where you build it determines who owns it. Algorithms born in China stay China's, no matter where the company moves, no matter who buys it. That's the line Beijing just drew, and it changes everything. So back to the summit. Why would China go this far? Detain 2 founders, unwind a closed $2 billion deal, risk an international incident with the U.S. president flying in this week? For one startup. Because Manus isn't just one startup. It's the missing piece in something much bigger. Let me explain. AI splits into two stacks: the physical stack, drones, robots, machines that move in the real world, and the software stack, the models, the agents, the AI brain. China already owns the physical stack. DJI alone makes 90% of all commercial drones on Earth. Chinese humanoid robots captured 90% of the global market last year. Over the last 5 years, China filed 7,705 humanoid robot patents. The US filed 1,561. And they're winning on price. China's flagship robot, the Unitree G1, costs $16,000. Tesla's Optimus isn't even on sale yet. China is shipping 10 times more humanoid robots than the US right now. They've already won the physical layer. What China hasn't won yet, the software stack, the AI brain. The US still leads on the foundation models, but that lead, according to Stanford, is now 2.7%. That's not a lead. That's a rounding error. And here's the piece nobody's saying out loud. Manus is the bridge between those two stacks. Foundation models think. Robots act. Manus is the agent layer in between. The thing that takes the AI brain and connects it to anything that moves. So if China gets to keep Manus-style technology, they connect their physical dominance to a world-class software brain. They get the whole stack, the robot, the brain, the agent that runs it. The entire next industrial revolution, built in China, shipped from China, owned by China. That's why they detained the founders. That's why they unwound a closed deal. That's why this is sitting on the summit agenda right now. Because letting Manus go to America means handing the US the one piece China was missing. And taking it back means completing the stack. So here's the real story of the Trump-Xi summit. Two founders who walked into a meeting and haven't walked out. A $2 billion deal Beijing reached back in time and canceled. A company that ran from China, and China is dragging back by force. And underneath all of it, a fight over who gets to own the next industrial revolution. And honestly, I don't know how this ends. Maybe the deal dies. Maybe the founders disappear from public view. Maybe Trump walks out with a compromise nobody admits happened. But I think we're past the point where this is really about one startup. Because what China understood, before almost everyone else, is that the next industrial revolution won't belong to the country with the smartest chatbot. It'll belong to the country that owns the entire stack, the factories, the robots, the chips, and the agents that connect all of it together. That's what Manus actually is, and if that's true, then this summit isn't a trade meeting. It's the first real negotiation over who gets to run the AI economy. We'll know a lot more in 48 hours. See you soon.